everyone, welcome to another episode of Three Things with Catherine Cortez Masto. Today I am here with Vanessa Robertson from Geothermal Rising. She is Geothermal Rising's Director of Policy and Education, and she is a Nevadan. Yay! We are going to be talking about the work Geothermal Rising is doing to promote clean energy, why building that clean energy industry is so important for Nevada, and the potential impacts of Republicans' proposals to cut clean energy tax credits in Congress. So let's get started. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for the invitation.
I'm so excited. So most people, let's talk about geothermal rising, what you do, because most people, unless you're really kind of from Northern Nevada area, you don't really know geothermal energy, what it's all about, and why it's so important. It's part of our clean energy future. You want to talk a bit about just that and what Geothermal Rising does?
You'd actually be surprised how many people even in Northern Nevada don't know that the pepper mill is run by geothermal or steamboat at the bottom of Mount Rose Highway. So yes, happy to talk a little bit about that. You know, geothermal energy really is harnessing the heat from the natural heat from the earth to power our homes, our buildings, districts, and create electrical generation. It can also be used for direct use in industrial settings. So it's really, really versatile. I like to say it can, put electrons on the grid and it can take electrons off the grid depending on its application. And it's really a wonderful, renewable, clean, firm baseload, energy source that is domestic. It's right here. In
Northeastern Nevada, most people don't realize Northeastern Nevada, that's where most of the geothermal. Well, they know the hot springs, right? It's similar kind of, where all the hot springs are. That's the geothermal we're talking about, right?
Correct. Yeah. Actually, Nevada is second in the country, but just behind California. We have 26 power plants actually, which I think even myself, I was like, I didn't realize that. And more on the way as well, hopefully.
So talk about the importance, because as we're leaning into this clean energy future, like you said, there's a number of projects, there's a number of utilities, but jobs that are created, and good paying jobs around this space for Nevadans as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think some of the latest numbers, in Nevada were, up to 3,000 jobs that are, as you said, high paying, stable, secure. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to fluctuate because that resource is abundant and managed correctly, which with the technologies it provides. And a lot of those are in rural communities, which is really important in Nevada.
Yeah. Do you see where do you see geothermal going from here? And let's talk about, first of all, the last 5 years, how far it's come, but where do you see it going from here forward? I'm curious.
Yeah, definitely. I think just in the last 2 years, we've seen at Geothermal Rising, we're a nonprofit membership organization, and we've seen just over 150 new startup companies enter the geothermal space in just the last couple of years. So that is a testament, I think, to the innovation that's growing, not only in what we consider in the term, hydrothermal, so, just natural occurring water, but now the new technologies that are coming out with oil and gas transition is opening up a lot of doorways to bring geothermal to, they say, geothermal anywhere. Geothermal anywhere and everywhere. So
well, and we talked about this also, the workforce, right? If we're talking some of our kids or our workforce in Nevada, they have the potential, and we're seeing this now, to go through school, be trained on oil and gas, and then they actually can transfer to geothermal. Yep. And you're seeing a lot of that happening because somebody want to be part of this clean energy.
We're seeing a lot of it. I'm part of one of my, the education hat I wear. I get the honor to work with all of our student members that are actually across the world. We've got student sections that are across the world, and the number of petroleum engineering students that are now discovering, wait, I can apply everything that I've learned and go and work in clean energy and be innovative. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest pieces is they're creative, they think outside the box, they're going to solve a lot of problems. So we're seeing a lot of transition from that space, but also current oil and gas workers, that are not students going into it. That transition into that field is growing as well. And so we're looking at, how can we support that transition? What sort of programs are out there? Where can we, from the nonprofit education research side of things, are there internship programs that we can support or certification programs? So it's really exciting.
And our goal is to, had a certification program. We want to bring it back.
Yes, we definitely want to bring back the Geothermal Academy. It was a huge success for many years, and then funding stopped, and
we got to bring it back. There's so much potential. Yes. Lisa Murkowski and I, we both sit on Energy and Natural Resources. She's a senator from, as you well know, from Alaska. We introduced legislation, the STEAM Act, to really focus on how we get some of these clean energy projects built. Sometimes because of bureaucratic delays, it takes years, and we want to get them in the ground, not moving, create these jobs, and move forward. So we actually introduced the STEAM Act to kind of streamline the permitting. It doesn't negate NEPA. It just basically says, if this has already been approved and gone through the NEPA process, then they shouldn't have to do it all over again, and they can move forward. So it's streamlining it so we can get these projects going.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I think it's a testament to the bipartisan nature of geothermal, and eliminating some of these inefficiencies and just roadblocks that are geothermal projects sometimes take 6 to 10 years to get. They sometimes can have 6-7 NEPA reviews for the same project, and so streamlining it, setting some timelines, being able to have some what we call categorical exclusions, again, and being very clear that it is with the environment in mind. That is very important to the entire industry, because it's the only energy source that you have to have that symbiotic relationship. If you mismanage your reservoir resource, it's a detriment to the, it's there.
That's right. And people have no idea. Okay, so you're on a plane, you're sitting next to somebody, and they ask you, what do you do? How do you explain it to them? And how do you excite them? How do you excite them about geothermal?
Yeah, I think, saying, the heat beneath our feet, can solve a lot of our energy problems that we have right now, and future, energy demands that we see. And I get the pleasure of working in the education space and in the policy space, to just really amplify, the need, the benefits, the hurdles that we're seeing to really help this industry. And working with members across the world is really fun. I work remotely from Reno, but I get to travel quite a bit here, here in DC. So
I think it's, as I sit on Energy and Natural Resources, this is really one of the exciting things for me, to be able to work on legislation in Inflation Reduction Act. People know that legislation because we lower healthcare costs for some folks, but we also do a lot of space in this here around energy and incentivizing tax credits, production tax credits, advanced manufacturing, geothermal, to really promote clean energy projects, right, and clean energy technology, and bring some of that kind of advanced manufacturing back here to the United States. It was important. It was exciting for me. Listen, as a senator, it sits on the committee of jurisdiction, say, this is great for Nevada. That we're primed. This creates good things, union jobs, and puts people to work, and it's good for our energy grid, and it, our renewable mandate that we have in the state. It helps us accomplish that and reduce our carbon footprint. So it was an exciting time, and I have to say thank you, because it was. You and your team worked with us as we were crafting, right, the legislation to say, how does this make sense? How do we want to protect the environment, but we also want to take advantage of this clean energy future to reduce carbon footprint, so that we are continuing to protect the environment. And you guys did an incredible job, but we're not done yet. Unfortunately.
Busy times.
Yeah. So the challenge we have now is we are talking today on the day that the House has just passed a reconciliation bill. Now, for most people that don't understand reconciliation, so basically what it is the House is passing legislation essentially so that they can provide for tax cuts for the very wealthy. And they have to pay for it somehow. And to pay for it, they have to find really trillions of dollars, because it's going to be a $5 trillion hit to our debt. So they're trying to find about $2 trillion how to pay for it. And so what they've done is they've gone back through legislation that we have passed to repeal it or take certain things away that will help pay for those tax cuts for the very wealthy. And unfortunately, the work that we did in this energy space, they're looking to take it away. And so I want to talk to you about that, because I think it's important for people to understand what's at stake now as we look at our clean energy future. Because I think it's important for people to know that when we talk about all of the above energy approach, it's not just geothermal, it's solar, it's wind, it's advanced nuclear technology, right? It is fossil fuel, right? It's everything that you can imagine that should be in the mix, but with the ultimate outcome of reducing our carbon footprint. But every region's going to be different in their portfolio. We've got a lot of sun, we've got geothermal, so we're going to take advantage of that. But not every state can.
Exactly.
But the goal is for all of us in this country to incentivize the innovation and research around this and the new technology, so that we lead and take advantage of that scientific mind and what we have here in innovation, so that we're not beholden to China or other countries that have an economic advantage in this space, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a huge. We're nervous. It's gonna be detrimental to the industry, and already all the great work that's been developed over the last couple of years. These companies, especially the small ones, but the big ones, really rely on these investment tax credits and production tax credits. That if they phase them out, on these timelines, like geothermal, as we talked about, geothermal takes a long time to get up and running, and so
what if they change the so they're talking about changing the definition. Talk about that a little. For the investment tax credits and the production tax credits, not only are they changing the timeline within which you can take advantage of those credits, but they've actually changed a definition that also will have an impact on projects moving forward, right?
Yeah, so originally, it was, construction commenced, and now they've switched it out to project in place, which for some, industries like solar, they can get up and running a little bit faster than geothermal power plants. So it impacts it quite a bit, especially some of the deadlines are 2032, and it's like if you started one right now, it still wouldn't, with how long things, which hopefully with other future legislation, it'll speed it up and everything, but
because it's first of all, for a project that started with a production tax credit and said, okay, we get this, and it's based on construction starting, right? But now, in the middle of whether you're putting your financing together or starting your project, or you're in the middle of a project and it's changing now, no, it's not. You get this tax credit when you start the construction. Now you get this tax credit now only when you can put it in service. And folks are not at that stage where they can put it in service right away at the timeline that this House Republicans have defined. So it is essentially shutting down a lot of these projects, and the investment tax credit will be lost to many clean energy geothermal projects because of this.
I mean, this is investment dollars that is then going to go somewhere else.
That's right.
Potentially other countries. We've got a lot of other countries investing in the U.S. and the U.S. geothermal space, and they'll go somewhere else. And another term that they're getting rid of is the transferability of these tax credits, which is essential for especially these smart startups, that they don't have the capital, so they can they get an investor, they get them committed, they can transfer those tax credits, but
because the financing is not easy, and for a lot of these clean energy projects, you have to find private investors, and they're looking for a timeline and to get up and running, particularly with the supply chain issues. It takes time, and the permitting issues that you have to go through. So you're giving them a 10-year window. Here's what we're going to do, or whatever that takes. And now the House Republicans have essentially collapsed it, and now the private investors these projects have gone to are, well, wait a minute, that wasn't what we were investing in, that wasn't what we were thinking about.
So a lot of the last couple of days when, our group, because we were, here, talking to folks and educating, and a lot of the Republican offices, when we talked about this, we said, look, this administration has said that they favor geothermal. Did you know that this is going to be impacted? And quite a few of them had no idea,
right?
That it was in there, and so that piece of it is important for that education. And,
well, which is interesting, and it's typical. What I'm seeing, unfortunately, right now is there's not a lot of thought into some of the policy that is being put in place here. They're literally taking us backwards in some areas where there was bipartisan support, like in geothermal. There was bipartisan support to move us forward, to lead in this space, in this technology in the United States. And now we have House Republicans who are saying, well, we probably don't know anything about it, and are just taking us backwards.
Yeah. Well, I think, some of the executive orders have called out, prioritizing geothermal. So we've, been able to go in and be like, but look, right here, here, this is contradictory. You can't have expedited permitting and cut all the funding for these agencies that are responsible for it. So,
so we're hoping people actually recognize the importance of this, and we're shining a light on it and advocating. And that's why your advocacy here on Capitol Hill is so important. It really is, so that everyone understands what is moving through this. And by the way, the reconciliation bill is a bill, they do it through this process of reconciliation so that it is a majority vote. And right now, because the Republicans are in control, they don't need Democrats to be involved in the negotiation. But that's, people don't necessarily understand, well, why aren't you in the negotiations? Why aren't you part of them? Because they're not opening that door, and they're not allowing that to happen because they can move it on their own. And that's why it's bad policy when you don't have both sides coming together and negotiating and talking and having those affected.
Yeah. Well, I think we maybe have a few champions on the Republican side that we can, hopefully push, the letter that was submitted saying, hey, we actually don't like the way.
But one of ours is Mark Amodei, right, or Congressman Amodei, and so it's good. We want that bipartisan support because this isn't a partisan issue. It's about energy technology, energy, and moving this country forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, good for you. So were you born and raised?
I was.
Were you in Reno?
Yes, in Reno. I'm a Renoite.
First generation, second generation, third generation?
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. What high school?
Galena.
Yeah.
But I was in kind of the northwest part of Reno, so I went to Jesse Beck and Swope. I'm sending my son to Swope next year.
Oh, that's great.
That's really cool. So went to UNR and then.
What was your major at UNR?
Spanish and then environmental studies. Yeah, and then I got my master's in international environmental policy in the Bay Area at the Middlebury Institute. So I lived away from Reno for a little bit, and and I was like, I miss home. I love the seasons, Tahoe, all that. So yes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming home. I love it when we have Nevadans that come home.
Yeah, it's more and more. I have so many high school friends that are moving back right now, and I'm like, I told you, it's pretty good.
That's true.
But we try to keep it a secret, though, because we don't want too many.
Well, let me just say, Northern Nevada is transformed. It's incredible. It's actually really exciting to see all the new restaurants and all the different things happening in Midtown, and there's a lot to do.
Yeah, and a lot of big industries, when Tesla came out and Google and
that's right.
All these big industries are kind of coming in, and that's one thing too with geothermal and data centers. Like they can sit next to each other and power data centers with 100% energy all the time. And
well, so let me touch on that because I was just giving interviews on this, and this is an important point. We are moving into kind of a century here now where we are talking about artificial intelligence and data centers and quantum computing. Technology is taking us in a different direction. Blockchain, I'm working on Genius Act, right? Stable coins. A lot of this requires electricity, and a lot of it. So we need generation. We've got to figure out how we generate the electricity for the future, not just to turn lights on, but to do so much more. And if we don't and aren't able to do that, again, this is technology, AI computing, data centers, we're going to lose out to other countries like China, right?
Yep, exactly.
And that's why the technology, like you just said, geothermal, the energy generation from it can sit right next to a data center and power them. And power that new technology.
Yeah, we're actually that's what Google's doing with one of the startup next gen companies, Fervo in Nevada, and Ormad, and so a lot that's happening right now. So we're excited, and so it proves it. It proves this concept. It shows investors like this is smart. We can do it. We definitely would love some federal dollars to help us out because to get us where level playing field. Geothermal is only, 0.5% of our electricity grid, but, Department of Energy is, said now it could be up to 900, megawatts. And so it's 300 megawatts. So,
that's exciting. Listen, that's what I mean. And I think, and you're right, there's bipartisan support for this. There are individuals that I get to work with here that see that future and still, like Lisa Murkowski, she's one of the ones that recognizes that this is where we need to go as a country if we're really thoughtful about our future.
Well, whatever we can do to help, bring all of that more together, I think that's just a part of the trade association and just really bringing everyone's voice to the table and representing it from, a neutral playing field. We're tech agnostic. We want all the tools in the toolbox because geographically you need different technologies, to really bring geothermal everywhere. But having sound policy really allows that to happen. So thank you again for all of your work in this field. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you being here and just the conversation and the work that you're doing. Keep it up. We need you. We need those voices because it is part of our future and our opportunities. And if we can continue to grow in that space in Nevada, which we both love, I think it's so important. Thank you. Okay, now the next most important question. Have you been to Ely and have you been on the train in Ely?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, you have not been?
No.
Oh. You gotta go out there because...
Yeah. Is that where the Great Basin Observatory? Yeah. Okay.
So they don't go as far out.
Okay.
And so it's right in Ely.
Okay.
And the train has been there for a while because it's one of the old coal and steam engines. Okay. And they do dinners or champagne kind of rides, and they do for your son. The first time I did it, they do a ride out where they actually get robbed by bandits. Right? They ride up on their horse, and then now they do the stargaze and stuff because it's a dark sky area, and you get experts that come with them, and they take you out in the middle and show you. And,
I love that.
And for Christmas, they do the what do you call it? That cartoon, not the
yes, North Pole.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about.
Polar Express.
Polar Express.
Yes, there we go.
You got Polar Express. You go with your pajamas and you get hot chocolate and go out there. So it is.
We did a lot of that when my son was younger. Now he's little. He's in tween age. So, but he loves. He's finally at this age of natural beauty and oh Mom, that's so. I'm just gonna stare out on a road trip, and I'm like, yay. Not on your tablet. So I think he would love it, especially too because we would go camping, He's always like, look at the stars.
Plus, they have on the phone now. You can put on the constellations on your phone, or not on your phone, but put your phone up and you can see the constellations. The program is amazing. Yeah. And it is. I've been out to the planetarium there in the Great Basin, and doing some of the stargazing there. Nevada's beautiful, and there's so much opportunity. People have no idea. All right, everyone, that's all for today. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time on 3 Things with Catherine Cortez Masto.